Over the last couple of weeks, City Skylines fans have been celebrating the original game's anniversary with 2 content creator packs and a new DLC. This week, its sequel gets the same treatment. We're looking at 2 content creator packs for City Skylines 2, Office Evolution and City Stations, along with a minor update to the base game. Office Evolution by Titan brings 45 new growable mid-rise office buildings that feature unique facades at every single building level, plus 3 new signature buildings. City Stations by BadPeanut comes with 22 city service buildings that include 20 upgrades as well as 14 new props. And truthfully, those descriptions undersell it. These content creator packs are awesome and I'd recommend them to almost anybody, and you're gonna see why in just a moment. And even that small base game update is a big win. While I said it's minor, it includes a highly requested feature, one that might even bring my Twitch moderator back to the game. And the base game update also comes with a new signature building, a new Cityslopedia, if you will, and a few bug fixes. But most importantly, I was able to load into all of my saves after this patch. No significant modding issues for either Magnolia County or Segunda Beach, which is really exciting. But before we jump in, a quick warning about this video. I've only had about a day with the patch in these packs. This video is actually a week old by the time you're watching it, and I couldn't release it until today because of the embargo. Right now, I'm somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, returning from Sweden where I got to hang out with Iceflake Studios and other City Skylines content creators. I'll have a lot more on that in a future video or stream. But I wanted to mention this because the information about the patch might have changed while I was traveling. So definitely check the pinned comment below because I'm going to leave a link to the patch notes as well as any significant things that I might have missed in the video. And with all of that out of the way, let's jump right in. And we'll begin with Office Evolution. And if you pick up this pack, this is what you'll get. And it might not look like much, but this is a really unique pack in that every single building level has a different asset. So that makes it a lot more like Mediterranean Heritage than any other region pack or content creator pack. And functionally, what that means is level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 assets will have different meshes for all of the building levels. With almost all other assets in the game, level 1 and 2 will have the same model, as will level 3 and 4, and then level 5 will be a unique asset. So I guess this has deceptively more building variation than you might expect based on what you saw. Now, one of the advantages of doing it this way is that if you zone a 2x2, you know what asset you're gonna get. It's going to be this one because this is the only 2x2 asset. And you'll be able to visually tell where it's at in its building progression based on how it looks. Because this is the level 1 asset. This is the level 2. This one right here is level 3. This is level 4. And this one's level 5. And I think that's a really creative way of doing it. It means that you can essentially plop an asset without plopping an asset, which is pretty unique. And I just love the height of these assets. They're not overwhelming. They're definitely mid-rises. They'll fit in almost any build. And initially I was thinking that these assets might look incredibly European and not fit in a North American build. And even though they're definitely very European in some ways, in other ways, they could fit in almost any kind of build. So I'm really digging these assets. They're really, really nice. And just look at the detail in all of these assets. That is so beautiful. These are the kinds of assets that I think you want to look at every single one of these at every single building level all the way around because they change on every single side of the building. And they're really, really outstanding assets. If you're not sure who Titan is one of the asset creators behind the German region pack. And if you recall seeing that really nice church that was all over Reddit a couple weeks back, that was Titan as well. Just an exceptionally talented creator, and you can tell by looking at each and every one of these assets. So those first 5 right there are the only 2x2 assets in the pack. These right here are the only 2x3s. So if you want a building with a clock tower, zone 2x3 and you will get one. And then you can predictably see that clock tower building change over time. It also means that you probably don't want to have just a whole bunch of 2x3s side by side because you'll get the same asset in a variety of colors. Behind it, we have 3x3s. And I really love the way that this one changes over time. It gets a little bit deeper looking, a little bit wider in the rear, and that top component looks super modern. And just like the 2x2s, the 2x3s and the 3x3s are going to be very predictable. You know if you zone that category, you're going to get a building that looks just like that. That dynamic changes with the 4x4 assets. We have 13 of these. You have 2 complete sets and then one that has a level 3, 4, and 5 asset. And these buildings are absolutely striking. From the mosaics to the statues on top, it's just really a beautiful asset. And I love the way that it progresses over time. You start to see that modern addition in the rear, then the glass top, but we're still preserving some of those historical elements. Then right here, the glass top is increased in size. And imagine they preserved the statue but lowered it down. And then by the time we get to the final form, we get a little bit taller, but it's still not a very tall building, which I love to see. This is that mid-rise that's completely missing from City Skylines 2, and we finally have it. And there's one thing that's worth pointing out about these assets. It's going to make it feel like there's a bit more variation. Not just do you have different colors for these buildings, but an asset like this one, for instance, if I take this and plop it a couple of times, you're going to notice that those parapets are different. And in some cases, you'll get billboards on the top. So again, it's another way that this feels like there are more assets than are actually included in this pack. Then we have some additional 4x4s. These ones feel much more historic. Absolutely beautiful. These would fit really nice into a commercial district. You can imagine these being wall to wall with commercial buildings and creating a really nice street front. And by the time you get to level 5, you get that same street level presence, but it's a much more modern looking building. And that happens in the real world. You'll get that facade preserved and a much more modern building is built around it or behind it or on top of it. Really, really cool way of looking at the assets. And then finally, we have these level 3, level 4, and level 5 assets that don't have a level 1 or level 2. And I have a sneaking suspicion that I know why Titan did this. Basically, most buildings are going to reach at least level 3, if not level 4 or level 5. So by having these additional level 3, 4, and 5 assets, you're just increasing the overall variety of buildings in your downtown area. So I think that's a very creative way of handling the building leveling mechanic, and a really nice way of adding additional variety into your downtowns. Now, if you're not familiar with the way that building leveling works in this game, you might be wondering, how do you ever get those 3 buildings if it doesn't have a level 1 and 2 variant? And you have to remember that there is no linear progression. So if you have this level 1, this level 2 might be what comes of this. And then you could end up getting this level 3 building. It could be this one, or this one. Because all the game is looking for is a 4x4 asset of that zoning category at that building level. It doesn't care that it's the same asset. It has no way of telling. So essentially, this level 2 or this level 2 will either become this building, this one, or this one. And again, that's the reason why I said that these assets' superpower is that there's only one variant of them. These are predictable, and these ones will give you predictable variety. And if you mix these sizes together, you're going to get a lot of variation. And that's especially true if you mix them in with these 5x6s. That's right, these aren't 5x5s or 6x6s. These are 5x6 assets, and there are 17 of them. There are 3 complete sets of assets, as well as 2 additional level 5 assets. And the first set of assets reminds me so much of the Netherlands pack. I think they would fit so nicely with them. And I really love the way that this building changes. You can just see it evolving over time and becoming a much more modern structure. And that's reflected in the rear too, where you start to see some green roofs and more modern elements like that. Just a really nice addition. This next asset might be my favorite in the entire series of them. The first one looks very historic. The next one, you get that modern addition in the rear, but you still have that historic facade in the front. Then we start to see more changes on the side. You can imagine this building being very interesting on a corner because of the way it's changing in the back. Then we get some pretty significant changes, these glass pieces. It starts to feel like there's segmentation of the building, and like maybe the facade is being saved in the front while the whole back is being restored and remodeled. And then by the time you get to the final form, you get this glass atrium on the top that you just imagine would be a really special place to be in. But that front facade is still preserved, and the end result is a much more dense building, but still a building that's not very tall that could fit in almost any city. Just love this asset. And I just love that these would look great mid-block or on a corner. They're just really spectacular assets. And then this right here is our last complete asset set. And this is a really interesting one in that it's not growing in height at all over time. All the additions are taking place in the rear. The building's getting bigger. You're seeing more of the lot filling in. And this is really, really neat because if you want to preserve a certain height, these assets are going to do it. And it just seems like the building's being renovated and added onto and modernized over the years. And this asset in particular, it reminds me a lot of the German high school building. And knowing that Titan helped work on that pack, I wonder if it's supposed to look good next to that asset. I imagine that it would. And then finally, we have 2 special level 5 buildings, and these are absolutely exceptional. This one right here looks like a castle. It's just really a unique looking building. A little bit of historic preservation, a little bit of a wholesale remodel, either way. This one right here, though, definitely feels like they have wholesale scraped the building, preserved maybe just a little bit of the facade, and they've tacked a brand new modern office building in the rear. But still, this is not an overwhelmingly tall building. You could fit this into almost any build. And really, that's the story of all of these assets. These are medium density office buildings. It's a category that doesn't exist in the game, and they are really nice growable assets. And I just love that these have a sense of history about them. These are assets that tell the evolution of your city. They're demonstrations that cities evolve over time. They're not static. And even though these buildings are showpieces, they're not overly showy. And I think that's what I like about them the most. Well, that and the beauty of the architecture and the street level presence that's maintained throughout all of these assets. No matter what building you grow in, you're gonna have the same feeling at the street level, and that's so important. That's why buildings like this get maintained over time, because of the way they feel when you're walking down the street. So these are absolutely lovely assets. This pack also comes with 3 signature buildings, and these are really, really special. This first one right here might seem like the asset is broken, but if you click on it, you can read why it looks this way. This is a neo-Gothic administration building. Only its ruins survived the test of time. However, recently the main entrance has been secured, restored, and integrated into this modern office building. So the reason that it looks like this is it's only a facade covering the front of a modern office building. This boosts your city's entertainment, the interest in university education, your office efficiency, and your overall well-being within a kilometer. And ultimately, it's a very flexible office building that you could use mid-block or on a corner that would fit into almost any build. And that's because its size is not at all overwhelming. Absolutely beautiful asset. Then we move on to the second signature building, which does overwhelm a bit. This is a modest office building from the turn of the 20th century that's fallen into disrepair that has recently been included as part of the base of a striking new high-rise tower. This one boosts your office efficiency, interest in university education, software peak production, efficiency, park entertainment, and well-being within a kilometer. And you can kind of see what they mean. This is the modest office building, and this new modern tower sits right next to it and looms over the top of it, connected by this glass structure over the top. Just a really striking way of incorporating that historic element into this brand new tower. Just such a cool asset. There's really nothing else like this in the game. Absolutely beautiful. And then finally, we have this building, which used to be a hotel that was remodeled in the 90s, and that there are rumors the new ownership group wants to add a tower too. And you can see that this is a possibility because there's an upgrade for this signature building. So in its base configuration, it'll improve well-being within 500 meters. And if we add this tower onto the top of it, we're going to see plus 5% attractiveness citywide, plus 5 office efficiency citywide, and plus 2% interest in university education. But before we add that on, I just want you to get a feel for what this asset looks like without the tower. And it's a wall-to-wall building that would fit nicely in a corner. Very, very attractive structure. And then you can add this thing onto the top, and this is massive. But this sort of thing happens. This is a way, again, to preserve the way the building feels at the street level, but get that striking modern addition that gives you all that additional office space. And I just love that you're gonna be able to plop this building with a plan to add this in the future. Just this, there's really nothing else like this either. The only thing that would be kind of similar is some of the assets from the Skyscrapers content creator pack. But even there, those assets are much larger in their base configuration. I don't know of another asset that starts out this small and lets you upgrade into something this large. What a creative way to use the upgrade system, and what a beautiful asset. So that right there is Office Evolution, and I'd recommend this to basically anybody. It adds a whole new building category, mid-rise office, that doesn't exist within the game. But perhaps more importantly, these assets are absolutely stunningly beautiful. Titan knocked it out of the park with this one. Great work, and I highly recommend picking this one up. Then we have City Stations by BadPeanut, and this is just a really special creator pack. You know, my favorite creator pack for Cities 1 was Sports Venues, also by BadPeanut. It's one of those packs that I think is just really applicable to basically anybody, and I feel like this one might be as well. Let me show you why. Basically, it gives you some of the best transportation assets in the game. Starting out right here with buses, you get this compact bus depot. This only has 10 capacity, but if you wanted to have some buses deploy from your downtown, this would be a way to do it. It has one upgrade, the electric bus maintenance upgrade, and it doesn't produce much pollution or noise. But look at the size of this thing relative to the normal bus depot. It's a fraction of the size. You could fit this thing in basically anywhere. And if you're retrofitting this thing in, it's going to be super easy. But even if you wanted to place 5 of these things side by side, you could do that, and I think it would look absolutely fantastic. Then we have a couple of bus stations. This right here is the small city bus station. No upgrades here. It is what it is. But what's so unique about this asset is that it's not just a small city bus station, it's also the smallest bus depot in the game. This thing comes with storage for 2 vehicles, which is really kind of crazy. I wouldn't have imagined that you could consolidate these things and have a combined asset like this, but here we are. So this has 4 bus platforms in those 2 vehicles, and it's sunken into the ground a bit. So if you want to give your city a bit more texture, this is a way that you could do it. It also means if you have a slight elevation change, you could work this in really nicely and make it fit within that elevation change. So I guess I really appreciate this flexibility. It's a really neat asset. Now you might have noticed I placed this asset twice. And the main reason for that is it has different propping. And this is something you'll see in a lot of the assets with this creator pack. Basically, the platforms have different propping. So as you're placing this asset, you're going to get a different look. So let's place this thing like 5 times. Check out all of the different variety you get here. Different propping, different colors. And what's nice about this is if you place multiple of these in your city, it's going to feel like a unique place. But also, if you want to have the same one, if you're using Find It, just clone that one. And you can get the same one over and over. So all in all, probably the most unique bus asset in the game. Next, we have the large city bus station. And this has the different platform covers just like we saw over there. And it changes not just the main canopy, but also those small canopies over the platforms. And that makes it feel like they are totally separate facilities, which could be really desirable if you're placing these in 2 ends of town or 2 different cities. But what makes this asset really special is that this one has some upgrades. You can add a subway interface, and you can also add extra platforms. And now this is a really substantial facility that could really handle a lot of traffic in your town. The other thing you might have noticed is much like the smaller variant of this, it is sunken into the ground. So again, if you have grade, this is something you're going to be able to work with. Otherwise, it will give more texture in a completely flat area, which is really desirable and can make your city feel a lot more realistic. Next up is an asset that you don't know that you need. This is the architectural bus stop. These are really special because of what you can do with them. You can place them in the center of a road, which means that you can finally make a true bus rapid transit system if you want to. And this is something that I've wanted to do for so long. That is the kind of transit that Madison has. We have a bus rapid transit system with architectural stops just like this one right in the center of the street. And these work like any other bus stop. Just select them and you can place them. You can control them really nicely and you can load up your entire street with them if you'd like. But ultimately, my favorite thing about them is that they're absolutely beautiful. And I feel like stops like this just make buses feel like a more substantial form of transportation. Really, really nice assets. And then our final bus asset is the city center station. Now, this is a unique building, and it is a unique building. This is another building that comes with a bus depot incorporated inside of it. Like the other bus stations, it has that sunken concourse, and this one has a couple of upgrades. You can add additional platforms, as well as a subway interface. So this thing can really kind of do it all, and it's just a really strikingly beautiful asset. It feels like a modern centerpiece of a city. And did I talk about capacity? Because this thing has 7 platforms, and you can add 7 more onto it with that upgrade. So you could route some serious bus traffic through here. Next up, we have some rail infrastructure and some stuff that I think everyone is going to like. Right here, we have a compact rail yard. This thing reminds me a lot of the rail yard in Tygon's rail infrastructure pack. You can add on to the side with extra tracks. Granted, I'm way too close right here. I can use Anarchy though and move this wherever I want, just like I do with Tygon's, and really create a large rail yard with these assets. And I gotta say, I love that Peanut's been so considerate about pedestrian access. You can see that there's a walking path that goes all the way through here, and you have to link them together, otherwise it'll throw you errors. This asset has to be totally functional, which I love. And ultimately, again, the size of this means that you can fit it basically in any urban environment, which is really, really, really special. Next up, we have some sunken bypass train stations. And this reminds me so much of Cities 1. I use these so often, and they look so much better in Cities 2. So a couple of interesting things about these. Obviously, just like those bus stations, these have different propping. So we've got one variant of the canopy cover right here and another one right here. And I just love that this gives you more variety, so it doesn't seem like you're taking the same train station and cloning it throughout your entire build. Yes, train stations might share the same DNA, but they're going to look different depending on their context and when they were built. And this mimics that a bit. These also have a ton of upgrades. You can add 2 additional platforms in the center, You can add a bus terminal to the front. You can add a subway interface. And if you notice that these are parking lot roads, you'll probably know where I'm going with this. Even with anarchy off here, I can snap onto the side and do what I want, be that attached to a side street like this, or create an additional parking lot. The choice is really up to me, and I love that flexibility. And I love that I can do that in a vanilla game. This next asset is essentially the same, but elevated. So you still have the island platform in the center that you can add. You still have the bus terminal up front, as well as that subway interface. The only major difference is that you can't clip onto this without anarchy. However, because this is elevated, these actually extend all the way through. And if you snap onto the side of the building, you can make connections with all those parking facilities. So that means you could have an entrance on either side, or you could extend these and make a larger parking lot if you want to. The choice is yours. And you might have noticed that I plopped this thing 3 times. That's because there are very unique canopies for this. And here are the 3 different variants: glass, covered, and then no canopy at all. And again, I just love that there's a little bit of variety here. If you want the same look, plop it a couple of times or use Find It to clone it. But I think for most people, that variety is a desirable thing. And then finally, we had the Central City train station. But this thing isn't just a train station. It's also a pedestrian amenity. It's also a rail depot. It does a little bit of everything. So this will give you 8 trains as well as 12 bays. And before we look at the upgrade, just look at this asset in its base configuration. This is absolutely striking. I would have never imagined that you could make an asset like this. And that pedestrian bridge, my God, just such an absolutely beautiful asset. This is a showpiece, so maybe it's not surprising that this is also a unique building. You can only place one of these in your cities unless, of course, you have anarchy. But it really is a thing of beauty. Now, there are 3 upgrades for this. We have the tunnel link. So basically, if you place this, your trains are now underground. And that can be really helpful if you're navigating through a dense urban environment. Right here, we have a subway interface, adds it right onto the side. And finally, we have a botanical gardens. And this adds a botanical garden right on top of the rail depot and the train tracks. So here's without it, and here's with it. And what a striking piece of architecture. I mean, it's amazing. This is just amazing. All the pedestrian paths on top, the park, the pedestrian feature, the way it's worked in. This is just, it's such a beautiful asset. I love this thing so much. I have to put this in my city. Then we have some tram infrastructure. And I'm not gonna lie, I just placed a whole bunch of this stuff in Segundo Beach, and I wish I would have used this. And that's not just because the assets are absolutely beautiful. This one right here has 12 vehicle capacity. The vanilla variant of this exact same asset is 10. And this one has an upgrade where you can get 6 more tram vehicles. So not only is this smaller, but it also has a lot more capacity. And when you compare the size, there's just no contest. And you know, I didn't want to place the tram depot where I did in Segundo Beach. I did it out of necessity because of the size of this depot. And this is actually what I wanted. This is a spectacular asset. Next to that, we have a tram plaza. And this thing is almost as much of a work of art as it is a functional piece of transportation infrastructure. And that is, in my opinion, what the very best transportation infrastructure does. That was a part when I worked in Colorado, every project had an arts budget, because elevating the design of some of these stations can be a point of civic pride. It can really rally people around the city. So not only is this giving us more tram stations after having none for so long, but it's also giving us different variants of these absolutely beautiful tram stations. And the great thing is that these are indeed amenities. These add 3 outdoor recreation because they're parks. Next to that, we have some architectural tram stops, and these things are absolutely beautiful. They look really, really modern. I love that you can place them either in the center or on the side of the road. Just very, very nice tram stops. Next, we have the large tram plaza, and this is an absolutely exceptional asset. Not only do you have different canopies, these recolor when you plop multiple of them, so you're gonna see more variations. It's also a park and adds that +3 outdoor recreation. And it has a super unique upgrade, a tram yard. So if you add this thing onto the back, you get 4 trams. And I don't know about you guys, but I just love these combined assets. It adds so much flexibility. And sometimes this is all that you need, just 4 trams, and then maybe the small depots at the end with some of these stops in between. And you can now do that because this asset provides you that flexibility. And then finally, we have the tram terminal plaza. This has 12 bays, and you can upgrade it to have a subway interface. And ultimately, it's just a really striking looking building that is just a showpiece. It's a real showpiece. If you want to go all in on trams, this is how you do it. Having this in your downtown, just stunning. And again, this one adds +2 outdoor recreation, so a little bit less than some of the other ones, but still it adds a benefit. Next, we have subways, and this right here is a compact subway yard. It comes with 6 subways and the ability to add extra tracks to get 6 more vehicles. And that occurs within the footprint of the building. So in this small space, we now have 12 subway capacity. And you can imagine a world where you place a few of these side by side if you need a whole bunch of capacity. Next to that, we have the small subway plaza. This is another one of those combined transit amenities and park. This gives you +3 outdoor recreation, and you could see this being the centerpiece of a park area. In its default configuration, this thing gives you 2 platforms, but you can add 2 more on. And the special thing about this is they're perpendicular platforms. So when you add this on, you'll be able to have trains going in either direction. The other add-on is a small bus terminal. So if you want to add 3 bus capacity to this, you can do that. And the terminal bays are right on the side right here. You can see here's one without that bus terminal, and here's where the pull-offs are. Now again, the reason that I plot this a couple of times is you get those different designs. This one has the oval canopies, this one has the rectangular ones. And I just love that we have additional variation. That variation extends to the elevated version of the subway station. You can see these have very different canopies, but the stations themselves are exactly the same. Just like the subway plaza, you're looking at having 2 platforms. The only difference is this does not increase the attractiveness of your city at all. You also have the small bus terminal, which gets tacked on right here, as well as the 2 extra platforms. And ultimately, this just provides options. If you want an elevated rail network, here you go. If you want to go underground, you get this option over here. And then finally, we have the big dog. If you played Cities 1, this is going to seem very familiar when it's in its final form. But this is the Sunken Subway Park. This provides +20 outdoor recreation and 4 subway platforms. And in the base configuration, this thing is already spectacular. You get the subways that reveal themselves and they go back underground. You've got these seating areas up here, and you can just imagine this being a very lively and active place if you got a whole bunch of subway lines hooked up. But it can be even more. You can add extra platforms. This will take away 10 attractiveness, but add 8 subway platforms. And I don't know about you, I personally think that this is more attractive. This is just like the subway station I used at the heart of Verde Beach. And I love that the subway is going in all different directions. Linking all those different lines together would be such a challenge and so much fun. And I feel like this view does this station justice. You have 4 lines at the bottom and 2 on the top, and that's a total of 12 platforms. You could have so many subway lines coming together at this facility. But we've got one more upgrade, the architectural roof. You want to increase the comfort? Add it right on top. And now this thing would protect it from the elements, be that heat or rain or snow. Man, this thing is so cool. So cool. And I absolutely love that clock. You might have noticed that on many of these stations. We're to come back to that, but it's a really cool element. But before we get to the clock, we've got to talk about these. This pack comes with 4 pedestrian overpasses. There are a variety of sizes. We've obviously got a small one here, medium right here, large right here, and extra large right here. You find these things under pathways, and they just snap right onto the road. So if you want this to go right on top, plop it right there. If you want to reverse direction, just move in the opposite direction, and you can switch which direction it goes. There are 3 different designs. So you can see this one right here doesn't have a canopy, and there are 2 different canopy options. And then for everything larger than the small, it has an upgrade, the median staircase. Now, you might be wondering, does this have to go on a road? The answer is unfortunately yes. You can place it over a pedestrian path, but it'll still give you that road needed indicator. That said, you can place it on the side of a road like this, and that opens up some options. Because if you're crazy like me and want to make your own custom train station, as long as you have a road access right here, which you'd have to have anyway, you can do it. And I could see getting creative and chaining a couple of these things together to make an absolutely massive train station. And then just to show you how these look on a variety of roads, here's a pedestrian overpass going over a medium road, here's over a large road, and here's over a highway. And it just looks really good on all of these. And I want to point out one thing. You might wonder, why would you ever want to do this? Let's say you have frontage roads on the side of this highway. You could allow people to walk over the top of the highway by having a pedestrian overpass over the top. Just so nice. But the other nice thing about this is if you are seeing lots of pedestrians jaywalking and creating lots of problems, you should be able to plop one of these and get people off of the road. And then ideally, remove these crossings. It's a thing of beauty. I have wanted this asset for so long. And then finally, this thing comes with a ton of props. They're all underneath the parks menu. And now I get to come back to that clock. This clock is one of the props that you can plop. You can place it wherever you want, but I really love that you can place it in the center of a roundabout. What a unique way of being able to use this. All you've got to do is grab the prop, place it at the end of the road, and boom, roundabout. Absolutely awesome. I would have never imagined that that is possible. And the rest of the props are the canopies that are included as part of the train stations, tram stations, and bus stations. And the great thing about this is you could use them wherever. You could make your own custom bus stations or your own custom parks. And I'm sure you can imagine using some of these canopy covers for bus stops or center running tram stops, or honestly, just to create unique amenities in your parks. The only thing that's kind of unfortunate about these is that you're going to need Anarchy to place them in most instances. And that's because unless you're doing something like this going over a road, all these props are going to conflict. So you'll need to turn on Anarchy so you can plop them freely. But still, I love that we have options. And ultimately, this one just does a little bit of everything, and it does everything that it does exceptionally well. This is going to be one of those creator packs that once you play with it, you're not going to want to play without it. So I'd recommend it to basically everybody. This is the day one purchase for me. This one's amazing. Then let's talk about base game additions. The first one is the Encyclopedia, and this thing is kind of wild. If you've been struggling with learning how to play the game, this is going to be the tool for you. And this thing is honestly very robust and very detailed. You can tell that Iceflake has been doing their homework to learn the ins and the outs of the game, and creating the Encyclopedia honestly is a pretty brilliant way of doing it. They've been able to acclimate themselves with every facet of the game by writing the literal book about the game. And I think that even if you're an experienced player, you're probably going to want to jump in here and take a look because you might learn something. For instance, look at noise pollution. It's created by vehicles, service buildings, and some abandoned buildings with squatters inside. I had no idea that was a thing. It's a temporary effect so it doesn't accumulate, but the effects do stack. And it's immediately removed when the source is removed. This is the kind of clarity that you get because of the Encyclopedia. So again, poke around in here. And just know you can search for topics too. So if you want to learn more about specialized industry, just search for specialized. And you'll learn that placing specialized industry will make your city more attracted to those industries that use those resources. Good information to know. But do know that not every topic is covered. For instance, I searched for homeless and nothing came up. But you can imagine those topics being added in the future. Next, they added one new asset, the Iceflake Arena. This is a signature building and it is beautiful. And this looks strikingly similar to the Nokia Arena in Tampere. That's not a bad thing. That is a beautiful arena. This is found at the very end of commercial specialized buildings. It adds 4% attractiveness to your city and +5 well-being within 2 kilometers. And it's a dome, so it'll fit in all climates. Absolutely beautiful asset. And then the final addition is one that most of you are going to love. If you go underneath road services and scroll to the bottom, we now have road zones. This is a zoning toggle, finally. Here's the thing. It works exceptionally well. It works better than the mod. So basically, if you want to remove zoning, hover over the side of the road that you want to remove zoning on, and it will turn red. You see if I switch to the other side, it turns red over there. If you click, it removes zoning. If you want to add it back, right mouse click, and it brings it back. The great thing about this zoning toggle is it doesn't seem to conflict with the modded version of it. So if you've already removed zoning using a mod, you can add it back with this. The other great thing is that unlike mods that remove zoning, this still allows you to plop buildings on there and they don't do a bunch of weird corruption things. So this really is kind of the perfect zoning toggle. It removes a mod from my mod set and it just makes me happier to play the game in a vanilla state. If you've been playing on GeForce Now, this is going to be a game changer for you. Between this, the content creator packs, and if you have dev mode enabled, you're going to be able to make some absolutely wild vanilla cities now. This is great. And that reminds me, I almost forgot to do the Recolor test, but here we are. I'm using the vanilla recolor tool now, so you're not able to recolor quite as much of the asset, but it's very predictable. And you can see that you can recolor basically everything very predictably. I used red, green, blue across the board for all of these assets. So it's not exactly the same on all of the assets, but it's at least predictable in the asset sets. And it's like that for all of these. Like here are the city station assets, and they look absolutely recolorable. I wouldn't say they look beautiful with what I've done to them, but they are absolutely recolorable. From the smallest tram station to the biggest bus station, you can recolor everything. And I think it's worth pointing out, this is something that I have not confirmed just yet, but because you can recolor all of these canopies, if you have modded recolor, you should be able to recolor basically everything, not just what the vanilla tool is allowing right here. And finally, for the Iceflake Arena, you are going to be able to recolor it to match your favorite sports team. Go team. This is awesome. And there are two other important upgrades to the base game. The first is that base game buildings have had their window textures upgraded. So this is how they used to look, and here's how they look now. Second, they fixed the bug where if you would continue into a save that was set in easy mode, it would switch to normal mode. So if you've thought that sometimes your easy mode save is a little bit harder, that could be why you're hitting continue into game rather than loading from the main menu, and that was a bug. I don't even know how you end up finding something like that, but that is a wild one. And those are the new content creator packs and the new base game update, and I've just got to say it, absolutely love both of these. I think they're both worth picking up. And honestly, City Stations is one that I'd recommend to anybody. No matter what kind of city you want to build, no matter what kind of player you are, even if you like to download lots of assets, I still feel like these are some of the very best ones that I've ever seen in City Skylines 1 or 2. And with this update, I know it's a small update, but this is such a big request, and they added it. They added it in this update that it came out of nowhere. And perhaps owing to this fact that this is a small update, for 2 updates in a row, mods have not broken when the game has been updated, which I don't recall that ever happening in Skylines 1 or 2. So again, big W for Iceflake. But what do you think of these packs? You gonna pick them up? Let me know in the comments below. And what do you think about the zoning toggle? I'm really pumped about it. But with all that, we're gonna leave it here. And I really hope that you've enjoyed this one. If you did, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. I wanna thank you so much for your time today. There's a million things you could have been doing. You decided to hang out with me and go over these content creator packs. And for that, I appreciate you and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.